Well, hello and welcome to another movie review from MBE. Tonight, today, tomorrow, whenever it may be, it's actually very early in the morning here, very early in the Sunday morning here in the UK, because we've just watched Coming to America, and that is going to be the movie we are reviewing. That is Coming to America. And joining us as always is John C. Walsh. I am obviously your co-host. John C. Walsh there, just coming up, and I am Stephen John McLaughlin. So thanks again for joining us here on our YouTube channel. Of course, our Twitch stream now, John. Before I let you in and guide us through this review, this film was directed by Craig Brewer, who Eddie Murphy's worked with previously on the likes of Dolomite. And it's an all returning cast, well, minus a couple we've talked about, John. The likes of Arsenio Hall in there, Eddie Murphy clearly, Cherie Headley, Jermaine Fowler joining the cast, Leslie Jones, who we'll get into, a fantastic actor, Tracy Morgan, Kiki Lane, Wesley Snipes, James Earl Jones, the great James Earl Jones is back in there, John Amos, briefly in there, John, but makes his presence felt. John, just before I hand this over to you, it's getting 5.5 out of 10.
Morgan Freeman, Stephen. You missed Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman, yeah. On IMDb, so it's getting a pretty average rating on that. So I'm going to pass it over to you now, John, because that's how we're going to come in with, obviously, our rating system.
Yes, Stephen, just to set it up for people who have perhaps not been here before, we rate it through a scale of F to A. F is shite. Worst film ever seen, reserved for films like John Travolta's The Fanatic, Arizona Forgotten, Phoenix Forgotten. D, poor film. C, around about C, plus, minus, good, average. B, very, very good. A, perfection. So that's our grading scale. That's how we go through it. Just setting it up before we get into this review and ultimately grade this movie at the end. Just so people understand how we review these movies. But Stephen, we'll not screw around with that too long. Let's get right into overall thoughts building up to this movie. Stephen, what the original meant to you and why that was probably important for your experience of watching this sequel. For me, the original, one of my all-time favourite comedy movies, absolutely love Eddie Murphy, and that was the zenith for me of his comedic movies. You could argue there was others, but for me, Coming to America was right up there. So coming into this movie, he had a real hard time trying to eclipse what came in 1988. For me, it was almost an impossible task. So armed with that, I was getting into this movie with a unique mindset, and that I was expecting to be disappointed and hoping to be surprised by what I got. I don't know how you felt getting into this movie, Stephen, if you share my experience getting into this. Were you expecting much? Did you, like me, absolutely love the original movie? I know you did. And how did that arm your experience getting into this movie, Stephen, before we get into the nut and bolts of the actual movie itself?
Very similar to yourself, John. I wasn't expecting too much from it. More curiosity than anything. I really loved the characters from the first movie, and I really wanted to see where they were 30 years on. That's as far as it went with me, my sort of attraction to watch this movie. I'm a big Eddie Murphy fan. I have been most of my life. He has had a dip in form, but he's had a resurgence, in the last 5-6 years. So that probably aided in my decision to watch this movie. We talked about this film 2 years ago when it was in talks, and we didn't like the idea of it.
Yep.
Eddie Murphy started to make really good films in that space of time, and also talking about this production, talking about the film, who was coming back, what the storyline was going to be about, and that intrigued me enough to think possibly there might be something in this, actually. I know we'll get into it as the review goes on, John, but you're right. Come to America in 1988 is one of my all-time favourite comedies. It's a romantic comedy. You've got to remember that. It is a romantic comedy. Rating systems as well, John. No, exactly. Rating systems for this current film is a 12 over here, which is quite a jump from the original film's rating over here, which was a 15, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's like rated R.
But you've got to remember the original movie had nudity in it. It had obscenities, and also the theme in the original movie, John, and its tone and its sort of humour cannot be repeated
No.
in the modern world today. That's the thing I admire about this film. They addressed that. They addressed it in the barber shop. There was all a sort of dialogue between the actors as well that addresses it as well subtly. And I've got to appreciate that, and I've got to respect them for that as well.
Yeah, I'm very sad that you can't inappropriately touch women anymore. That's okay, I had it when I was younger. They address it very early doors, Steve, and within the first 15 minutes or so. This ain't going to be the movie we had in the 1980s. The world has evolved and changed. It's a very different place. You can be cancelled now, and Eddie doesn't want to be cancelled. He's hoping to do a stand-up tour where he will probably be cancelled for what he says in a stand-up tour. Not by me, but by some other person on social media. I'm absolutely certain about it. Stephen, I've not mentioned critiques in this little guideline that I've got here, but what you said there certainly was a critique of mine. A criticism of mine, maybe not a critique. And I'll get into them just now. Before we get into some of the positives and standout moments, they were always held with the barrel of a gun in their face with this movie, in the sense that they could never do that level of comedy that they did 30 years ago. And they were already up against it, as I said, for me, try to eclipse the last movie because it was so good, so unique. First of his maybe multi-character performances. It went downhill with the Nutty Professor and stuff like that, although I liked that as a kid, I ain't going to lie. They were well up against it, and then when you balance that with not being able to do the kind of comedy that made him famous 30 years ago in this movie, because it is a 12A or whatever, it was hard work. So that's another criticism I'd have for this movie. Try to eclipse a classic, and then the comedy couldn't really be done the way it was years ago. And then we'll get into other criticisms as we go through, Stephen. I'm absolutely certain. We'll not start off in a negative. We'll get into the story, Stephen. What was your thoughts on the writing, character development, if there was any in it, the way it ebbed and flowed, any themes explored, Stephen? What did you make about the story? For me, it was a very simplistic story. I will get into another criticism. It says I wasn't, but I'll do it now. Just a rehash of the original story, Stephen, flipped. And they say coming to America, well, they weren't in America very often. So, yeah, story very simple, Stephen, almost a rehash of the original. If you've watched that, then it's pretty much a shot-for-shot remake in a sense in some parts.
John, the Akeem, Prince Akeem character has taken the role of Jaffe Joffer in this one. The traditionalist, we can't break hundreds of years of tradition, etc., etc. The theme that obviously James Earl Jones's character in the first movie was sort of voicing to Akeem throughout that film. In this one, it's very much the same. Prince, or King Akeem, I should say, at this stage now, he is now addressing that situation and sort of putting his point across about traditions, etc., to obviously Lisa. That this is the way it is, because he has 3 daughters. And the law says, it has to be a male heir that is next in line for the throne. Yeah. And that's where the Jermaine Fowler character comes in, Lavelle Johnson. I can't remember his name. Lavelle, he's obviously the. I don't really want to say the child. It's one of the things
a fish
I
out of
thought.
Water, Stephen.
Yeah, they do say that line quite a few times in the film, John. It's not uncomfortable because I like that kind of language, but it's a bit demeaning for the character, isn't it? To be fair, but it's set up very similar to the way Coming to America, the first movie, that is, was that the main character is the fish out of water. You've got to remember as well, and I think it's probably maybe important to mention this, Prince Akeem, King Akeem, and Semi aren't technically the main characters in this film, which I was surprised about, because the trailer when I was watching it, I thought the trailer seemed to have all the best bits.
Yeah, it did.
That sounds very negative, but it probably did have the most laugh out
There is other moments. There is other laugh-out moments.
Yeah.
Stephen, we'll get into it. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It's got some laughable moments, and you always have that when you've got Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy in a movie. You mix that with Wesley Snipes, and by all accounts, I think he says Jermaine Fowler's maybe got roots in stand-up as well, so he's quite a funny dude too. I like the Lavelle Johnson character. I see what you were doing there, Stephen. Very strange spelling. Is that Johnson? I don't know. I think it is. Weird
Johnson,
spelling.
yeah.
No, Johnson, Lavelle Johnson. Stephen, I liked the story. The story was okay. It was a rehash of the original. That's not a negative for me in a sense, because I liked the original story. It was almost a fantasy comedy, romantic comedy, if you like. Eddie Murphy was out speaking about it recently, why it's so rewatchable. And the reasons are that it doesn't get bogged down with pretentious themes being explored and stuff like that. It's quite simple. And you can go right into it and be transformed, taken back to that, transported back to that time. And that's why I like the likes of Shawshank. And it has heavy themes in it, to be fair, but it's got that sort of transportive vibe to it. Also just about this young guy, he's getting whisked away from poverty, and maybe not poverty, but a life that's not going anywhere, and he gets given a new chance. It's all about not judging a book by its cover. That's what I took from it. This guy's getting judged all the time. You see it with the interview at the start, which I liked, incidentally. I liked the fact he slapped that bitch down. I think he says, I can't wait to the blackface photos of you come out from a party, and he says it was Will Smith's Genie from Aladdin. So that was
blue on top of that.
It was blue on top of that. So I liked the way they took this guy. He was getting judged, and he goes to Zamunda. He's getting judged in Zamunda as well, and then all of the layers come off, and he grows into the human being that he should be. It was it was an empowering little story, if not
it's one of those things. Yeah, it's one of those things. If it's not well written, when they add a son into an established character from an established franchise, 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work. Crocodile Dundee, it failed. Indiana Jones, it failed. The Mummy, it failed, because they always pick these annoying kids. And I'm including your man Shia LaBeouf in that. He was annoying in that.
Yeah.
But Jermaine Fowler's fantastic in this, and you're right, John. Those themes, he's always up against it. He's a fish out of water, no matter where he is in the world. And I liked that they highlighted that. It didn't matter where he was from. He just didn't have a place in the world at this point in his life.
And Stephen, in terms of ebbing and flowing of the story, I think it flowed pretty damn well. To be fair to it, nearly 2 hours long, an hour and 40 minutes, I think. Went by pretty damn quick, so it was an enjoyable little watch. Good little bit of escapism from the shit's getting on in the world just now. I liked the ending when you throw Randy Watson into any movie. Sexual Chocolate. What is it he was singing again? Oh God, what was it?
We are family. Yeah.
We are family. I've got sexual chocolate with me. So that was a good ending. I did like the ending, man. A little bit again repetitive.
His singing's improved.
Not much. I believe
they couldn't get any worse.
Future. Yeah, I know. At least he didn't bastardise us. So what he did, we've got sexual chocolate with me. So he did, just not as much as he bastardised. What was it called, Stephen? The children of the future.
The greatest love of all.
Yeah, the greatest love of all. Stephen, I actually went back and watched the original, and I couldn't believe it. My only brush with that song was the Randy Watson version, and he completely destroyed that song. But Stephen, we've moved away from a story. We kind of covered that. I think standout moments, favourite scenes and sequences. I've got quite a few jotted down for a movie I think's merely average. I liked the intro. Was it Paramount?
Yeah.
Who made this? Was it the Paramount logo?
Yeah.
The mountain.
It's the logo. They did that in the first one, didn't they?
Yeah, that's what it says. A great callback, reminiscent of the original. They go over the mountain down. No matte paintings in sight though. It looks like it's CG or just a drone shot. And they go into the...
I was watching Beyond the Trailer earlier, John, after I watched the film, that is, and I can't remember the girl's name, who does that channel. She said that all those shots were shot, I think, in Georgia.
Oh, really?
It wasn't obviously really Africa, budgets and stuff like that,
Well, Stephen, we know that the United States is a hugely diverse country, man. They've got everything: snow, desert, sort of huge plains and stuff like that. So you can do anything there, and you can even go to the Canary Islands and do it as well, as we do know. The spaghetti westerns were shot; they were Italian, shot in Spain, Canary Islands, replicating America. It's all very Inception-esque. I liked that intro, Stephen. Another thing I really liked, although you've picked a hole in it in terms of the conceptual, the plot and how it fits into the original movie, but the alternate angle flashback of the nightclub, I thought that was a great sequence. It was amazing. Stephen, I thought Arsenio Hall aged pretty damn well, and I still think he's aged pretty damn well, but when you see him next to his 1988 self and it jumps to modern day, he's aged. Believe me, he is
John,
aged.
That was one of the things that I don't think they had to do, was the actual flashbacks from the actual film. I know the sequence you're talking about was, I think, de-aged. I think they de-aged them for certain angles and stuff like that. But the actual callbacks from the footage, the stock footage from the original film, didn't do them any favours, I felt.
It didn't. Stephen, I liked it though. I liked the way they utilised the certain sequences and shots from the original movie. They did it again with the sort of legend of Akeem going to Queens. The little royal aid for the Lavelle character. She's reminiscing of King Akeem at this point, and how he'd forgotten his way, and how everyone in Zamunda knows the history, and him going to Queens and finding a wife, and having to deal with sexist men of clergymen, and then you see Reverend Brown. I liked the way they'd done that aspect. You're right though, Stephen, in terms of timelines it doesn't quite fit with the original story. In this movie, the flashback, Akeem leaves the nightclub with Akeem and Semi.
They go to the apartment,
go to the apartment, the outline of the dead body's still there. I love that. I love that. It's a real shithole or something, I think the landlord says.
Yeah. Well, come in, gentlemen.
But of course, in the original movie, as soon as they leave the nightclub, they bump into who is it? Is it the guy from the barber?
Yeah, is it Clarence? I can't remember his name.
And they go straight to the pageant, and he meets obviously. It's not Cleo McDowell, whatever her name is. I forgot her name.
I mean, they're wearing I'm pretty sure they're wearing the clothes they were wearing in a nightclub when they're walking back to their apartment. And they bump into the barber guy, and they head straight to to meet obviously Lisa and the family.
Lisa, that's her name.
So it's probably picking holes, but it depends, I suppose. We only see one night of them in the nightclub. Maybe it was another night. I don't know.
Stephen, did you not love the fact that everybody in Zamunda, King Jaffe Joffer, the old sort of wise guy, the fortune-telling guy, sort of, I don't know what he was, the spiritualist, they all hate Semi. They're saying, kill him, just kill him. And the old spirit guy spits on Semi.
Well, there was a line, John, at the start of this film I did like.
They fucking hate Semi.
When, how is your father? How is my father? And he says, he's still holding in there. He's already gave, 3 death sentences to me this morning. So it's like there's still that hatred towards Semi. I think because King Jaffe Joffer sees through what Semi really is. He's a bit of a user in that first film,
And Semi obviously says when he's saying he's not got long left, something about oh don't speak like that. You've got plenty of life. He's like, give me a break. He hates him. I love that, man. I do like man. Semi's a great character. We'll speak about him. He gets his moment at the end, or not at the end, but his moment with the Wesley Snipes character. Other standout moment, Stephen, the funeral. Morgan Freeman makes an appearance. We get the what's his name, Oha, singing. He's not lost his voice. What a singer that guy is. That sort of extended sequence, that was the yin to the yang of the wedding sequence in the first movie. It's a funeral. Obviously the dancing and stuff like that. It was okay. We get Salt and Pepper in there. What was the other one?
En Vogue,
En Vogue, man. I don't know. I tell you what, Salt and Pepper ain't aged well, Stephen. Jesus Christ.
No.
Prince was speaking about their beauty 30 years ago. I don't think he would now if he was here.
I remember that song, John. Salt and Pepper and En Vogue, or On Vogue, whatever they're called, did that What a Man song from, I think it was sort of early to mid-90s.
Salt and Pepper were brilliant. They were
I liked them,
I love Shoop, just because of Ryan Reynolds. He was singing that word for word. But Stephen, I says a wee lead guy, obviously we've got another moment that was a standout for me. I'm not going to go through them all because we'll be here all night, but the moment where they go to Queens, they bump into Lavelle, they go home. Lavelle's like, I know who I am. You're not buying me out or something like that. And Semi deliberately opens the briefcase up and the money and the gold bars fall. And immediately there's silence in the room. I love that. Again, reminiscent of the gold toothbrush and stuff like that. I'm beginning to suspect these are the men who stole our belongings. I love that, man. In fact, to just flash your money, boom, I'll go to Zamunda, I'll be a prince, absolutely. Other moments, obviously the water.
On the John Amos, Cleo McDowell scene with Hakeem when he's a bit lost, and I think it's a very brief scene, and it's a nice sort of callback to obviously the Queen. Leon, I think her name was, wasn't it? Who sadly, obviously, the actress passed away years ago. And I'm glad they never recast her, John. I'm glad they didn't do that. Time has moved on. Jaffe Joffer is obviously, at death's door at the start of the film as well. So it's nice to see that, they are moving on with the story. The only thing I will say, though, is that it's a bit of a contradiction because those Barber guys must have been in their 60s, closer to 70 in 1988. We're talking 30 odd years now, and they're still the same age.
They're like 100, Stephen. They get their birthday card from the Queen.
Yeah.
But
that was probably that was one of the standout. Yeah, I know. He looked ghoulish though, but I think that was probably one of the standout scenes for me, John. Just when he said that, I liked your mother. You know, she was a very wise person.
Stephen,
paraphrasing.
Cleo McDowell's class. John Amos is brilliant. The actual character with the Furby, was it? What was it he called his flurry?
The McFurby or something. Yeah.
If that was real life, man, McDonald's would be gutting him. He'd have lawsuits coming out of every orifice in his body. But he's a great character, and you're right. That was a nice little emotive scene when he's on a low ebb. He says he's always thought she was the smartest, Joffa. So that's a great name, Joffa, isn't it? Jaffe Joffa, what a name, man. Obviously, Lavelle kicking about with AC Milan tracksuit bottoms on in the prairies of Zamunda. Puma, clearly, and Pepsi have got product placement in this. I like the fact, just the young prince in general, Stephen Lavelle, in this movie, Jermaine Fowler, just a cool guy. I love that character. Everything about him. When he got his new haircut, it was reminiscent of Eric Killmonger, the great Michael B. Jordan, the sort of side-swept dreadlocks. I loved that, man. I loved the hairdo. I loved his get-up. He was just a really cool little character in this movie. Everything involving him was standout. His mother as well. Great character. I think it's... Who is
Mary Johnson.
Leslie Jones. She was hilarious in this movie. Is this a house of God? Is this even a house of God? No, it's more a crack house of God.
She had the best lines.
Yeah, man.
She had the best lines for me anyway. For the comedic sort of angle of the movie, John, she had the best lines.
Enjoy your
every
bath.
time. Every time she was on I knew that was coming. I knew there was a guy under the water.
The royal genitals are clean. Can you do it one more time?
Yeah.
And then obviously, what is this black mashed potatoes caviar? What? We had a cousin called that. She had some great lines. She was a standout for sure in this movie. Her and obviously Jermaine Fowler, absolutely brilliant.
The interaction between Mary and Lisa as well. It was like I found Lisa very stuffy in this film at the very beginning. You know, for the first 20-30 minutes, I went, "She's from Queens. Surely she's not forgot her roots." But the minute she had a couple of drinks and then she was interacting with Mary, it all came back. You know, the Queen, you can't take the Queens out of the girl. You know.
Yeah, it's like
and it was great.
Stephen.
Yeah.
You can take man out of Parkhead, but not Parkhead out the man. That's a reference to any Scottish Glaswegian people in here. Parkhead, a very rough area in Glasgow where I was born and bred. Stephen, you were born and bred in a equally rough area though. So it makes you being born in these places, and it certainly made Lavelle Johnson, it certainly made Lisa McDowell, made them what they were, and they're very interesting characters in this. Stephen, the lion whisker retrieval scene, I liked that. I liked the way it bonded the oldest daughter of Akeem and young Lavelle together. She hated his guts initially, as Alan Partridge would say, but they got together, they hatched up a plan. The cat food was cool. It was a cool scene.
I've got that character.
She was good.
Mika, was it? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
She, I just felt she was hard done by, you know, because of some silly rule, you know, some tradition that spans hundreds of years. I just felt that's a bit shit. You know, she's been preparing all her life for this, and this happens. That's I kind of, I don't want to say disliked Akeem in the first half of the film, but I just felt this is not the Akeem I remember. He's more like his dad in this first half of the film. But you know, he redeems himself, obviously. But I just felt that character, the oldest daughter,
Kiki Lane,
it's a bit hard done now.
She is I didn't realise it was her from If Beale Street Could Talk. An amazing performance in If Beale Street Could Talk.
Actor, yeah.
Very, very good actor. So, I didn't even realise it was her, but she was pretty damn good. There was some interesting characters. General Izzy as well, Stephen Wesley Snipes, the great Wesley Snipes in there, playing a bit of a weasel. Slightly disappointed. One of my criticisms was the way that his character was brought down in the movie by the kids, although they established that they'd been taught by Akeem, and we know he could handle a broom and obviously a stick. And also it did give us a chance to hear the great Semi say, and I'll say it, defend yourself, you sweat from a baboon's ball. So,
well, I think as well, I mean, it's a great line, and I'm glad they regurgitated that one, but I think Semi's character as well had lost his way, and it wasn't until Akeem put his hand on his shoulder and said, just remember who you are. Because I do think that he forgot who he was as well, because in that first movie, Semi could handle himself. You saw the sort of combat sequence between him and Akeem, that it was a very good martial artist, you know, and you've seen it in the diner as well when they take out the robber Samuel Jackson, that he can't handle himself. But this he was a bit more. It was a bit more sort of like a weed in this movie for the first half anyway.
Very
there's that line, John, that you reminded me of earlier as well about Lavell's.
Yeah, I'll say it.
Yeah.
The prince was seen fleeing with the royal groomer, his uncle, and that wretched woman. Now watch your tongue. She's still the mother of my son. They stole the royal jet. Thieving bitch. She's a great interaction between these two characters. There was moments, Stephen, where the original movie bust out the chemistry. Just little moments with the characters.
Lavell's come back to Semi as well, John. About him being
yeah.
I can't remember what the line was.
It was brilliant. What was it again? I'll try and find it. You look.
Yeah.
God, where is it? I can't. You walk like an American pimp. You dress like a slave from the future. I was howling at that, Stephen. Howling, man. It was quick as hell, that comeback. I like Semi in this. Arsenio Hall, just a brilliant guy. He's done talk shows, he's acted, he's done stand-up. He's just a brilliant dude. And that character was a standout for me in the original. And he has his moments in this, obviously, with Tracy Morgan, his character, Uncle Reem. Yeah. He's leaking information. He's leaking information to the sort of press over in Zamunda, and they're strangling each other in the palace. So that was good. Stephen, obviously, Reverend Brown makes a comeback in the shotgun wedding back in Queens. Let There Be Light. And the neon lights come on, it's cheap as hell. He's tacky, he's dancing about in his socks. It's just so Reverend Brown again, Arsenio Hall. What did you make about that? What was your thoughts on Sexual Chocolate as well, perhaps, to round up these standout moments? Randy Watson makes his comeback. And we get Reverend Brown rapping. He's sort of rapping
the thing is, they kind of let the cat out of the bag with the trailer. They showed you Randy Watson. So you knew he was coming at some point. I think he's in the poster as well. I'm looking at the poster now. He's in the top right with the big cutout. So he wasn't in the film for the whole entirety of it. And then the sort of build up, who's it going to be? Diana Ross? Is it going to be is somebody bigger than Diana Ross? I mean, it's fucking Randy Watson because he's not been in it yet. It's got to be him, you know? So, but it was
and
like, I did twins. Like that.
You nailed it, Stephen. I thought it was Salt and Pepper back again, but it was the rapping twins in the original. Doing a disservice to Salt and Pepper, clearly. And Stephen, that's going to probably round up with standout moments. Have you any criticisms of the movie? I've certainly got a few. Akeem and Semi hitting downtown New York and immediately bumping into the sun in the middle of a population of about 15 million. That was a little bit unrealistic, but as I did say, Stephen, you have to suspend your disbelief for movies like this. I says the line retrieval, the whisker retrieval scene was equal parts enjoyable and ridiculous. And then also the things I spoke about, criticisms, it's just been stifled by today's PC gone mad standards. You just can't do comedy like they did 30 years ago. That certainly hampered the movie. But I didn't feel it had to be that kind of movie anyway. It was a different story about a different character and a different time. Also, Snipes' character, the takedown of him, and the way they were travelling back and forth between Africa and New York, like it was Glasgow to London on a plane, 40-minute travel.
I think, John, this film is not as funny as the first film. It never was going to be any funnier than the first film. That film was comedy gold, and it was lightning in a bottle. Eddie Murphy's not been able to replicate that in any other film since coming to America, in my book. He's not been able to sort of go to that level again, so he was never going to do it in a sequel anyway. Oh. But I didn't find this funny. I didn't find this film that funny. There was funny moments, but I felt this was more comedy drama.
It was hit and miss, Stephen.
Comedy. Yeah, coming to America in 1988 was a joke every 10 seconds, you know. And this, it was more sort of... Yeah, it was stretched out. The other thing I will say, John, as well, if I've got any criticisms, is the rewatchability. I don't think I'm going to get back to this one as much as I have with the original movie. No,
absolutely not, Stephen. It's sort of a manifestation of modern film in general. Most of them, I haven't got that rewatchability of movies 30, 40, 50 years ago. I don't know why it is, but they aren't. They're sort of one and done, maybe a couple of times, and then you back out and don't really get back, unless it just takes you in a moment. I'll go and watch that movie. And this certainly is like that. It's not got that magic. It's something, I don't know, I says it here, Stephen, in my notes. The entire story, it felt just a tiny bit flat compared to the original. It was lacking something special, a wee bit of panache to elevate it. And I didn't think the original needed a sequel at any point. I get excited for it because of what I've seen. But ultimately, it just feels like a less good rehash of this movie. I'm not saying it's terrible by any means. It's still a very enjoyable little watch. It's got moments in it. And the other thing I'd nitpick, the romance between Lavelle and the royal aide, it didn't feel earned to me. It was a little bit out of nowhere. He kisses her and then it's like, oof, we're getting married. A little bit rushed.
Yeah.
At least with Lisa and Akeem in the first movie, it went on for the entire movie. They sort of try to woo her. We've got Solo with Daryl and stuff. That's another thing. Daryl not being in the movie.
Yeah.
Why is he not in this movie? Dropped the ball. Could have recast the actor if he didn't want to come back. Romance was a little bit forced, even. That's another thing. But we're nitpicking here, man. This isn't a movie that's ever going to win an Oscar, so you can't really nitpick too much. It was an enjoyable little watch, man, for what it was. But Stephen, unless you've got anything else to maybe nitpick on, we'll perhaps jump in to performances.
I think just those sort of sped up sequences about travelling from America to Africa very quickly.
7,000 miles, 20 minutes.
You know, just there was and you are right, John. I think the actors that were playing, obviously the I don't know the girl's name. Obviously Lavelle and the royal hairdresser, or whatever she was called.
Good hairdresser.
I think because they're good actors, you know, and they've got a good chemistry between them, you can allow that, and you have to, as you said, John, suspend belief in these type of films. But the development between the sort of romantic elements between both those two characters was a little bit rushed, skimmed over, if you like, because there was so much going on. This was a big cast they were dealing with.
Steve, that's another nitpick you've just sort of highlighted it to me. It's an hour and 40 minutes long, and it kind of feels like it's all over the place. I need to find my son. We find the son, we come back. We have to prove he's worthy. All over the place. He's trying to feel like he's part of this royal heritage, this family, and then he finds a bride. It's all over the place. It feels like they had multiple ideas and they couldn't quite grasp one and make something out of it. They were just always rushing around trying to get something. If maybe, I don't know, land or stick the ending, if you like. I think it was the Nomzamo Mbafa Mirembe. I think that may have been the royal hairdresser. I'm pretty sure. I just had a quick look. I think that is her. I may be wrong, man. My eyesight's not the best. It's not what it was. I may be miles off, and I'm having to look at a screen that's about 7 feet away, so do bear with me, man. I may be miles off, but she was an interesting little character, Stephen. But performances, I'll get into performances. Who stood out for you, Stephen? Again, I think I kind of hit the nail on the head earlier on with the performances. Without repeating myself, Jermaine Fowler, Leslie Jones, they were the two standouts for me. Hilarious in parts.
The newcomers, John,
and that's not to do down Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall. I thought they were pretty damn good in their little flourishes.
John, I felt they were more sort of supporting in this, supporting characters in the movie rather than main characters as they were in the first movie. I said to you before we came on, I don't believe that Prince Akeem and Semi were in this film a lot.
No.
Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall were, because they were playing multiple characters, but when you're seeing them without the prosthetics, you don't really see both of them in this film a lot. I didn't feel that anyway.
It's more about Lavelle, Stephen. It was Lavelle's story.
Yeah.
He was the new Akeem. He was trying to find his way in this world, become a prince, prove he was worthy, find a wife. It was more about
Tracy Morgan, John.
Tracy Morgan. He's a great actor. He's just I don't want to call him an actor. Is he an actor? He's more a stand-up comedian, isn't he? He hangs around with all of the usual faces that are on Saturday Night Live and things like that. He's a very, very funny guy. What is he from, Steve? I'm going to click on him briefly just to check, because he has been in something. But also Dave Chappelle. He's in with Dave Chappelle and things like that.
I remember him in the
funny guy.
superhero movie, John.
Yeah.
He was in the superhero movie, but prior to that, I can't remember.
I'm just looking back. The Longest Yard. He's acted for a while. I'm talking absolute shite, but he's a very funny guy, man, and he had his moments.
He was in What Men Want.
Yeah.
He was in that What Men Want, yeah.
That was the remake, wasn't it, of What a Woman Wants?
Yeah.
I mind speaking about that. Obviously, Kiki Lane, she was pretty damn decent in little spots as well. Great actor. Not really fully utilising her talents in this movie. But for me, Wesley Snipes as well, but for me it was Jermaine Fowler and Leslie Jones. They were the standouts. If you were to twist my arm and really force me to pick one, it would be Jermaine Fowler. I like to look at this dude. I've not really seen him in anything else. I want to see him in more movies though. Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall, they're the sort of steady hand veterans, and they tick along and do the characters. They've played these characters before. They just slip into it like old slippers. For me, it was the Lavelle Johnson character, though it was a standout. Technical stuff, cinematography, score, editing, Stephen. I liked the score on this. I liked the music. It came and sort of busts the music. For lack of a better word, I keep using spurts and busts. I've not got the soundtrack right in front of me, but I liked the... what was the song he was singing coming home from the date with Lisa? What is love?
To Be Loved.
To Be Loved.
Yeah.
I liked the way they utilised that in the movie. Sort of score, choir version at the end when Lisa wakes up from her bed and looks down and there's a wedding happening. I liked that. I liked the score. The editing, that says it flowed pretty damn well for me. An hour and 40 minutes, it went by pretty quick, despite them grasping for something in the story. Cinematography, sweep and shot from the very start onwards. It was a well-made movie. It was technically accomplished.
Definitely. Yeah.
Overall thoughts, Stephen? What is your thoughts on this movie? Where does it rank for you in comparison, if I can speak, to the original movie? For me personally, nowhere near the brilliance of the original movie. We said it before, we touched upon it. It was always going to be a really difficult task to even mimic some of the greatness from that movie, let alone equal it, let alone eclipse it. For me, it never really got close to it. It was still an enjoyable little movie in spots.
Yeah.
Just lacked that bit of magic the original possessed. Maybe it's the youthful brilliance of Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall. They were in their 20s in the original movie. They're nearly 60 now. It's hard to keep up when you get to that age. Overall,
it does beg a question, John. Why make it? That's and I don't mean that in a nasty way. I enjoyed the movie for what it was, but they mention it in the film between the two actors, sequels that didn't have to be made. They're having a go at themselves, they're having a little dig at themselves, but I felt it's not a film I'm going to go back to anytime soon. I'm glad I watched it just to see where these characters are now, and today, and what's happened to them in the last 30 years, but something I didn't really need, but I don't think it was a wasted 2 hours or anything like that. No. It's somewhere in between being not a great film, but not a bad film.
Steve, nowhere near as bad as Dumb and Dumber 2 for me in terms of sequels. It was much better than that, which was just a dumpster fire. Really disappointing as someone, a huge fan of the original movie in that franchise, if you can call it. We got a comment from T3 Media's To Be Loved wasn't the original movie yet, but it was him singing, wasn't it? And good morning, hello. Stephen, I loved that as well, from Lavelle. Him getting up and screaming, hello Zamunda or something like that. I loved that get up. It was Bruno Mars-esque.
It was just zebras.
Zebras.
They didn't have a obscene comeback or anything like that.
It was great, man. That's the way I'd be. And obviously, again, the Beavers and stuff like that, he was fairly happy about being in Zamunda. Akeem not so happy about being in Queens. Overall thoughts, Stephen, I thought it was decent, man. It was watchable. Nowhere near the original, though. Are we going to rate it, Stephen? What are we coming to? What's the conclusion? What are we going to rate this movie at?
C-, John.
Yes, I agree with you, Stephen. So let's do it there. It's just official. If it's going to come up, a C-, Stephen. Yeah. It's not bad. It's not shite. It's not amazing, mind-blowing either. It's just a decent little average movie. Bit of escapism from Eddie Murphy and the gang. That's going to round our review up, though. What is your thoughts on it coming to America? Have you watched it? Does it eclipse the original for you? Does it equal the original? Did you like the original characters like Randy Watson, Reverend Brown, all of those guys coming back, Leo McDowell? What moments did you enjoy? What moments maybe grated on you? What was your thoughts in general about this movie or review? You can comment below if you've got anything to say. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube, the follow button on Twitch if you want to see more reviews and content like this in the future. And that's what you'll get, guys. But look, until then, I'm not going to hang around. Very late here. Bye-bye.